Hi there, ladies and gents. It's Dan from Adventure More UK. Lovely to see you again. Welcome to my new podcast, Catch You on the Flip Side. My special guest today is a motivational speaker, is a storyteller and happiness guru, and he is an event organizer. The man is Mr. Danny Bent. How's it going?
It's great, Dan. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, not a problem. As I say, I've been trying to get you on for a while. I've been talking to you for a little bit, and I've been following your sort of adventures along the way. You're quite an extraordinary guy. Now, first thing I'd like to talk about is, was adventure always in your sort of blood? Like when you were a kid, is it something you always wanted to be involved? I know adventure is quite a niche word, but just general adventures and stuff like that. Was that something you'd like to do when you was a kid?
Yeah, I think I have maybe like I think adventure. I didn't even think of adventure until like the last 10 years of my life. I was just
Okay.
a kid that just loved being alive, and I was very much encouraged by my parents to live life. And I come from a very physical background, I guess, in terms of my parents are both runners. My older sister used to beat me up a lot, and I had to toughen up to be able to handle it. But like I one of my first memories is probably as about a 4 year old. I was learning how to ride my bike, and I kind of just set off. I was in the hallway of the house, and I just
Oh,
set
really?
off. I cycled out of the front door, and then outside of that there's just these very, very steep steps right down, and I just cycled down those until I started falling. Like, I mean, I've repeated this on like numerous occasions as an adult as well. But and then and so I guess that kind of, I mean, it's definitely not rough and tough because I'm much more love and hugs, but it's that kind of
Yeah, yeah.
lifestyle of just enjoying seeing what your human body can do. And I was actually chatting about
Yeah.
this the other day with a mate about when I think I was 17, and I thought if I live till I'm 18, I will have done really, really well. Just simply because I don't really have the same barriers most people have that stop them doing things. It's not so much fear or anxiety and all those sorts of things. So
Hmm.
I would just kind of do them, and then you either succeed, and that's great, or you fail in a like crazy drastic life threatening way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's something I always seem to get from yourself. Obviously, I talked about you being a happiness guru in inverted commas. Uh, Obviously, you're always so happy, and that's something that I really like. It's something that obviously happiness is spread throughout. You know, if someone's happy towards you, they'll make you happy. If someone's miserable, then they generally make you miserable, which is something that I've noticed, and that's something that I like about adventure and the outdoors. Is I talk a lot about mental health and stuff like that, and I feel sport and the outdoors is an absolute great sort of therapy for people who are maybe suffering a little bit or a bit down and depressed, especially in the times we are in at the moment. So it's something. Is that something you kind of think about when you're doing your challenges, etc., and helping others?
I mean, it's probably it's per bit like what I was saying. It's just like with everything I do, I kind of just do it, and then you learn the lessons after it. And I think
Yeah,
I mean, and people just tell you things, the things that you are doing almost automatically and authentically, and then people are like, oh right, you are using this sort of method to live your life, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh right, cool. But I mean, something someone said to me once was fairly recently. This is again, and if you surround yourself with eight adventurous people, if you surround yourself with seven adventurous people, you become the eighth adventurous person. If you surround yourself with seven
yeah,
miserable people, you become the eighth miserable person. And exactly like you
yeah,
say with happiness, but I do think happiness is, it's the virus. It's the virus that we all want.
yeah. Absolutely.
If you are, I think if you can bring that out of yourself, it reflects onto the people you're around, and they just reflect it back to
Yep.
you, and it's you can make it into a positive kind of spiral that just makes everything better and better and better. But at the end of the, I don't want to. This kind of happiness guru that I've been dubbed is it's great. I am a happy person. I live a really wonderful life, and the majority of the time I'm on cloud nine. But at the the end of the day, I'm just a human being, and I have those days when I'm absolutely not 100%, and much nearer the bottom, and that's just part of life. And as you get older, I'm pretty sure it just comes with age and knowledge and through
Yeah.
experience, that you just learn how you can make yourself you bring yourself out of those. And for me, that is exactly like you say. It's like, get outside, surround yourself with green stuff, and if possible, surround myself with people, because I'm definitely one of those. Like, if I'm out of energy, just put me near some people with some energy, and I've got energy again. I'm an energy thief and a happiness thief kind of thing. If
Yeah.
I absorb that really, really easy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, with you say you surround yourself with people. Obviously, we sort of tend to feed off other people's energies. Now, when you was, I believe, when you were 11 years old, you told your mum you wanted to cycle around the world. That's
Yeah,
something I read about you. And obviously, was it in 2008? You actually went and you actually cycled from the UK to India.
yeah.
How was that your first big sort of adventure? That's a pretty big adventure. How was that for you?
Well, yeah. I mean, that is absolutely true. I was 11. I actually I didn't remember it. It was my mum that told me that this was the dream you've had since you were 11 years old, and they kind of explained the scenario of me standing in front of the leavers assembly at junior school, and having
Okay.
that conversation with the head mistress. And I got no idea. Like, when I was setting off, I didn't realize people were doing these adventures. I hadn't heard of Al Humphrey, or any one of these people doing
Yeah.
these crazy things. It was just something that was so deep within me that I was like, I have to go and do it. And then I set off and ended up doing it. But I love how you brought this in that I did that cycle ride on my own, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't change that for anything. I wouldn't do that with anyone else. That um which is kind of strange. But the fact is, when you're doing these things, you're never alone. If anything, you're just
No,
like
you're not.
desperate for a moment where you can write your diary, or you can send a text home or something, because there's so many people around you. And yeah, I mean, the more you go into Asia, the more that is. And for just in terms of this trip. And but also, it's so funny. Like, I hate going for a run on my own. Running is my thing. I just want to do it with other
Yeah.
people. And same with anything. I prefer playing instruments when I can play with other people. I would go for a walk with other people, but the thought of going for a walk on my own, it's just like, that's bonkers. Who would ever do that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'm exactly the same.
yeah, exactly. It's just an excuse to bring people together. And but what I was saying is, it's always been this. Like, traveling has always been my selfish time, I guess, in some sort of
Yeah. Yeah.
way. And you end up, I if you have other people with, like, say me and you, Dan, we were cycling it together, and this
Mm.
crazy Ukrainian comes out of the bushes and tells me to pack up my tent in sign language and come and follow him. Like, I have to think of you as well as me. And whereas when it's on
Yeah.
my own, I'm just like, okay, I'll do this, because I'm only putting myself at risk. I'm only depriving myself of this kind of downtime and sleep and everything like this. And then you go off, you follow this Ukrainian man, and a night of bonkers naked saunas, whipping each other with pressure, the leaves and all that sort of stuff would have been denied. And sometimes you have to deny yourself that, for the benefit of the person around you that's super knackered or whatever it is. But that goes, so you when I think when you're only putting yourself at risk, you can just live slightly closer to the edge.
Yeah, exactly. Just going back to the cycling to India, I was reading that there's a couple of, obviously it was all quite, majority of it was mostly, positive, etc. But there was times where I believe you were like woken up in the middle of the night with bloody gun, a rifle pointed to your head and stuff like that. Surely that couldn't have been a good time.
This is a really interesting. It's quite an interesting thing, because obviously I talk about this a loads. So even
Mm.
in the the fact that I survived, that's great. That's the most
Yeah.
important thing. But then like at the end of the day, it's an omega story, and that's exactly what I was thinking when I was being held at gunpoint for the first time. This was in the Ukraine again. I
Yeah.
mean, afterwards it became common. It wasn't so much about,
Yeah.
and you start learning that it's not a. It's the first time I'd ever seen a gun when I got held at gunpoint in Ukraine. So I was absolutely shitting myself, and
Yeah. I can imagine.
I was like thinking I'm going to die, and how am I going to get my body home to my mum because I'm a total mummy's boy. Um, but then by carry on, you just realize this is the way people like to stop you because they want a conversation with you, or they want to share food with you or something. They just like put a gun to your head.
Yeah.
It is a great way to stop someone. But
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine.
there's probably better ways to do it for the person in
Yeah.
question. But yeah, exactly. And well, I was thinking this is a way that my brain works in terms of even at that first time I was absolutely nervous as hell, but I was able to think this is going to make a really good blog post for my mates, and so I've got an ability in my brain which I think everyone has, but I've just been encouraged to live this a little bit more probably by my
Yeah.
folks, and just to find that tiny little chink of positivity in whatever scenario it is, and it makes everything easier, from breaking up in relationships to jobs ending, for
Yeah.
certain things that you're organizing not going as planned. If you can just hook yourself onto that one little good thing that could come of it, and you know, like in a relationship, you may have lost someone, but who's the next person you're going to find? Just tiny little things like that, and they just,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me, they help.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. Yeah. Like I say, you've always got to think positive because I always say, what's the saying is it pain is temporary, but suffering is voluntary? Is it something like that?
Or suffering lasts a
Basically,
lot. Yeah,
something like that.
sort of,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's um, which kind of brings, speaking of suffering, it's going to kind of bring me nicely onto my next sort of topic, which is where I kind of started coming up being aware of yourself, which was on the Ultimate Hell Week on BBC. Uh, and you came runner up, I believe, in that. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
right?
right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Not to damper anything, but yeah, to, I remember watching it, and for people who have watched it, it was quite funny to see you turn up because you turned up in a flowery t-shirt, a flowery kind of shoes. I'll be honest, they're quite funky shoes. I think they were great. But to the outsider, like again, I've mentioned before, I'm ex-military. If I had someone turn up on camp, as a new recruit looking like yourself, I would be like, ooh, okay. You'd have doubts, I'm not going to lie. But that's, again, it's all about, I don't really like judging people, but naturally do sometimes, unfortunately. With the Ultimate Hell Week, was that kind of like a pinnacle, not the pinnacle, but was that something that really changed the way you look at life and stuff like that?
Wow. I mean, there's let's just for anyone listening, just in case you didn't
Yeah,
watch it, because not everyone did.
yeah,
Hell Week was
no, no,
there were 6 special forces were brought in, and there were 30 recruits, and they had us for 2 days each, and they were told break them mentally, physically, or emotionally,
yeah,
and that was what they were brought in to do. They're like these super mega special, like celebrity special forces, kind of, who've
yeah,
achieved the greatest of the great, and they're there, and they're like, and they looked at us like we were scum, and they really wanted to smash us to pieces.
yeah,
We were kind
yeah,
of billed as the fittest and toughest in the UK, and you know, you know, there were some real tough cookies there, some real
mm,
amazingly strong, like the British bare knuckle boxing champ. There were Olympiads there, world champions at duathlon. The
yeah, yeah,
list goes on. It was massive, and for me, I just thought when I was invited to be on the show, obviously it's a massive compliment and all that sort of stuff, and it was I actually thought it was going to be bigger for me in terms of my career than it was. It was an incredible experience, one that I will never forget, but also one that you will know from your military. It I never want to compare what you have done in the military to what we have done. Yet we were just made to suffer for a long period. But the things that came out of it were so different to what I thought, and the majority of that was about camaraderie and the friendship and the stories, and like, because no one will understand what we went through other than those other recruits, and particularly the 6 recruits that made it all the way through every, they experienced every single special forces, and as such they're really, really close mates now. Hugh Brassington, Steve Kernan, Miller, the eventual winner, absolute legend. I've been to all their weddings. Dave Hellard, I've been to his wedding. This is how we only shared 12 days, but in that you kind of shared a lifetime of experience, and it's only when I'm with them that we can talk about it, and everyone's like, yeah, we know what you're talking about. But yes, I thought it was going to change my career. BBC TV, it was getting millions of viewers and stuff, and it gave me confidence, maybe, is what it did, rather than give me anything other than that. And there's definitely points in my life I'm much prouder of, I've worked harder to achieve, but it was a pretty, I suspect we're probably the only 6 people in the whole world that have been trained by 6 different special forces units, especially when you start combining the Russians with the Americans with the Brits. That's never going to happen, because you don't want them sharing secrets or whatever else. So it was mega. It was horrible. It was horrible, but it was mega at the same time.
Yeah, I can imagine. As I say, I've never been into sort of obviously that side of it. I've never been into the special forces side of it, but I can understand from just a general sort of military side of it. And you've got to dig deep sometimes, and obviously every time that your brain is telling you no, or your body might tell you no, mostly you might have carrying injuries, and your body will tell you no, your ankle's knackered, your back's knackered, or whatever it may be. Or I remember watching a clip earlier yesterday, and it was about when you did the sickener with I think the Philippines Special Forces. Dante, is it Dante?
Yeah.
And you did like a stupidly long tab, a tab basically a loaded march, so carrying weight. And then you got to the camp, and they basically went, right, you thought, oh, done, dusted. And then it was like, right, 100 burpees. And that's where your head's like, oh, no, not again. And I've done that plenty of times before, where you've done a loaded march, you've done, say, 3 or 4 miles, you get to Land Rover, you think, well, I'm going to jump on the back of the Land Rover, back of the truck, and that's it. And then they go, right, turn around, back to where you came from. And you're like, oh, no. And that's just all mental games. Now, out of all, you say 6. Was there 6, you say? 6 different special forces. Did you particularly find any of them more harder than others, or vice versa?
Let me just jump back to one of the things you were talking about, those sickeners. They were just happening the whole time. It was like, that was just the default. Yeah. And actually, I came out of the show starting to question what other people would say, do this. I actually did something with ASICS as a 10K run. And I just thought, suddenly I'm doing it. I'm like, these guys are absolutely having me along. We had this thing with ASICS, I had to run in the dark for 10 kilometers. So I didn't know how far I'd gone. It was just around the track that you had a little light that kind of went in front of you. And you couldn't count how many things you were doing. And I was like, they're not going to tell me when to stop. The test here is like, will he stop at the end? Will he choose to stop? And I was like, they better have booked some time off work, because I'm going to keep going until I die, just to show them up. and then it was like, okay, and then someone jumps out at you after 10K. It's like, okay, 10K is done. I'm like, oh, right, okay, you weren't having me on, but it did start playing in my brain, all those sickeners things. But yes, you were talking about the hardest, the toughest ones, right? So the Aussie, the guy from the Aussie SAS, he was a tough guy, and he broke the thing that broke us with that was we didn't get any food and we didn't get any sleep for something like 48 hours or something like that. You just like didn't know where you were. But in terms of the physicality, the shock, the awe, all this sort of thing, it was the US Marines. Ray and Woody, they were called.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
they absolutely they just took so much joy in the pain they were causing us that we were doing thousands of push-ups a day with those guys.
yeah,
And you know, that was just in the off time when we weren't running, or we weren't being thrown into freezing water, or doing sit-ups in under the water, and you know, it was just like utterly bonkers. We were so cold, it was brutal. Yeah, that was that they I remember the camera came onto me after in that the first night, and they said they go like, how you doing, Dan? I was like, I'm feeling a little bit emotional. And that was my first time on BBC TV. So I probably didn't do myself proud, but it was just honest, and that's generally what I am. And you know, that in terms of how you know, it was those guys that got me in the shoes, and the you know, these
yeah,
shoes that I love them. They were amazing. They had flowers stitched all over them, all over the
yeah,
outside, and oh my goodness, I loved them. And equally how much I loved them, Ray and Woody hated them, and I absolutely got
yeah,
hammered for it. They made me carry like big stones with everything we were doing. I think possibly they they I kind of hope they saw something in me, and that I'm someone that they can play some games with without breaking me, and you know, toy with me, you know, like a cat who's caught a mouse, just kind of like let it go, catch it again, you know.
yeah.
They really picked on they picked on me a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Because they give you a nickname of Flowers. I remember that. Because obviously I think you're all down as numbers, etc. But yeah, as I said before recording, I've got Ray coming on at another episode, which should be great. Because to go back to that, I've spoke to and I've worked alongside special forces being in the military. They don't want you to pass, not a chance. They because to put it, it sounds really harsh, but to put it in like inverted commas, they don't want a civvy to pass. They don't want someone who's spent 2 weeks doing their course, something that they've spent 6 months doing, like on hard ground. And they do that every day for 6 months. So they're probably doing their hardest to not make you pass. So I can totally understand that. And
Can
that
I jump in there,
something,
Dan?
yeah,
Because it was really amazing, because the British SAS, there was a whole host of British SAS who were around assessing, and any time that the kind of celeb special forces went off, and they probably had a nice banquet of food or whatever on the BBC
yeah,
on my tax-paying money, you know, like we weren't getting paid anything, but the SAS would step in at that point, and they obviously hated
yeah,
us as well, and thought we were scumbags, and they absolutely, so this is it, like Ray and Woody beasted us, but in between, like as soon as they disappeared, the SAS stepped in, and they were just beasting us. And we were just like beasted for 48 hours non-stop. And in fact,
ah,
and that 48 hours just continued on for 12 days non-stop. There was no rest at all.
mm,
And what was I going to say? I was saying something about, oh yes, the SAS, they clearly disliked us. You could just feel it. But by the end of it, when it got to the last six, we'd earned their respect by that point, and
yeah,
they were being nice to us, and they were like giving us little, you know, tiny little treats, moments where we could stand still and just shut our eyes and have a moment's sleep before they beasted us again. But and then
yeah,
actually by the end of it, obviously the special forces, Claire Miller, who won it, amazing girl.
yeah,
She couldn't join the SAS because of her sex, which is the massive irony of the
yeah,
situation. But
yeah, yeah,
they asked me and Hugh if we'd like to join the SAS, and I don't think I'm made for the SAS really, but it was a massive compliment, and a real. It was lovely to experience their journey of what they thought. You know, firstly, they just wanted us. If they could have pooed in our sandwiches, they would have done, and then by the end of it, you earned their respect, and they, you know, to have them ask that, and I was like, I'm too old. I was already too old to be in the SAS by that point, which shows
yeah,
how old I am now. But and then to them, and I said that to them, and they're like, that doesn't, you know, we can get past that. And I was like, wow, what a, yeah, maybe that wouldn't have happened, but it was lovely to see that change of heart and that respect. And because, you know, they were
yeah.
doing a lot of it with us, and so they were suffering as well.
Mm.
But yeah, really cool experience.
Yeah, it was a great show. Like again, if people haven't seen it, they need to see it. It's a great show. Um, Now, I want to bring you on to something that I think's amazing. Like this is where I feel like you were saying about we were talking about happiness and how you know being around happy people can sort of make you happy and etc. Is the project awesome that you founded or came up with? Again, for people who don't know what it is, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a free fitness movement that is radically inclusive. We're trying to get everyone of every age, of every type of human that you can think of. It's pretty loud. It's quite colourful, and
Yeah,
it really it's a fitness workout you can do in the morning, and it doesn't matter what your ability is, and you are going to get benefit from it, whether you are an international athlete or whether you are a great grandma. And we have both of those people come to the
yeah,
sessions. Um,
awesome.
yeah, exactly. Awesome. It's just mega, and it it is an alternative to joining your usual running club. It's
Yeah,
or your gym. It's much more for those people that are kind of probably a little bit more alternative themselves. Don't just want to sit there and push bench press or go on do a 20
yeah,
mile run along the Thames or something. There's so
yeah,
much
yeah,
more to it. Like I had a big bell that I used to ring, and if I rang the bell, it meant we had 10 or 15 seconds of wild dancing. We used to chant about unicorns and rainbows outside Sadiq Khan's office at 6:30 in the morning. Sometimes he'd walk past while doing it. All this sort of thing, and it's a beautiful thing. The crazy thing is, I just set it up because I wanted I wanted people around me, and I wanted to work out with people. And then you hear these
yeah,
stories of people that this absolutely revolutionized their lives, whether that is uh, quitting their mental health drugs, mental health prescription, and changing that prescription to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday Project Awesome, or whether that is just people, getting into fitness for the first time. We have people that had never done any sport ever for various reasons, and you just see their whole. You see their physicality change, obviously, and you see them kind of absorbed into this positive group. But then
mm,
you get to know them and you start seeing the changes that are happening in their relationships, in their work, the respect they start to have for themselves as things as their life change. And this is we're talking about adventure today as well. And people have gone off. The first people to paddleboard down the Ganges were they formed this
oh
group called
wow,
Project Awesome. There was two guys came, and they didn't know each other, but they were newbies. It was their first day, and I was sitting there with them, and we were chatting about a bit of chatting about dreams in the cafe after. I don't even know how we got onto it, but one of them
yeah,
said they'd like to kayak down the Amazon, and the other was
mm,
like, "Man, that sounds cool." And I don't know. A few months later, they stopped coming to Project Awesome, which is a bit sad. But 6 months after that, they came back and they told us about having kayak down the Amazon. So that's the kind of thing you get from it when you like surround yourself with positive people, people that aren't just walking the treadmill of life, and your
yeah.
dreams can become reality. Really, that's amazing, isn't it?
It is, yeah. As I said before, like I'm very much a person who likes training with other people. Again, I mention this quite a lot. It's just one of my passions. But I'm a big rugby fan. I play rugby myself, and I just like the team sport. Being around other people and that camaraderie and stuff like that. It's kind of for me. It was more of I won't say a replacement, but it was like I'd come from the military where I'd been around some awesome people, helping each other every day, and you trust a man or woman on your left or right. And now I play rugby where you have to trust the person on your left or right, and that's something that for me uh, is something I enjoy. Like I'll be honest, I'm like you say, I'm not. I don't really like going to the gym and just smashing out some bench presses or anything like that. I'm more of a. I'd like to try and think I'm more functional, especially playing rugby. But like you say, it's something I think it encourages you because if you're around other people, it motivates you, encourages you, pushes you a lot further than you probably would than when you're by yourself. So that's something that I think is amazing.
Mm.
Um, and and obviously, how have you been getting around it? Have you been carrying on whilst we've been in this current situation, or is it sort of been a bit adapted as such?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, Project Awesome because it's you know, there have been times when 200 people are there at 6:30 in the morning, maybe even more than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's just, obviously we've just moved to Zoom. It's still going strong on Zoom. It's really lovely. Like, I've stepped away from it. I'm, you know, it's still going, and that is a testament to the people who are involved in it. The lead people have stepped up to lead it, and I haven't been part of it for quite a few years now, and but it's still happening on Zoom. I see all the pictures. It's all super cool, and
Awesome.
yeah, it's just nice. And it's actually been really, I think, it's been a lovely kind of staff for people to lean on through this time, just to have that moment just booked into the diary, so you know you're going to be doing it, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, one thing one thing I think for me personally is something that I feel for yourself is like an amazing thing that you did is when you did the one run Boston. Uh, Obviously, on the sad events of the Boston bombings or the Boston Marathon bombings, you went and organised basically a relay, a running relay across the US, and that's you raised over $500,000 for various charities, and I feel I feel that that is an amazing sort of thing you did. How was that? That must have been to get the recognition you did as well from people like the mayor of Boston, and you became is it the hero of running in the BAA, which is the Boston Athletics Association. That must have been such an amazing thing.
yeah, it was absolutely amazing. It was just something that touched me. Running has been that thing that's been the constant in my life, from my parents, from my sisters. And actually, I mean, running has always been the thing, but I used to play rugby with my dad as well. So, but the sport is everything. And just to see this running
Yeah,
community attacked when they should be throwing their hands in the air to celebrate this, like, monument. I know how hard it is to run a marathon, how much pain you suffer in, and then to have have your legs blown from underneath you when at the very finish line. After just there was just something there that just touched my soul, and I just decided I was going to do something about it and organize this continuous running relay from LA to Boston. So for 24 days, about our baton, Peace Lily baton, was being carried from LA to Boston, and it was, that's just totally was insane. But it's, I think, much more than the actual event and the money raised. It was just how it brought people together, and this passing a baton broke down the differences between the different communities in America that you hear a lot about now in the press. And
yeah,
we had people from both sides of passing the baton and having conversations, sharing hugs, sharing handshakes with people that they might not normally have a conversation with. And I think in that respect, we're very subtly making a bit of a difference in the world. And it just shows you, it was just, there was three of us working on it, on the relay, and we just had this idea. We went for it. We invested a bit of my money that I put aside to pay for tax, because we didn't have any others to invest
yeah,
into it. And then at the end of it, you raised over $500,000. It just shows you, if you have an idea and you have some passion and a bit of resilience, the kind of resilience probably that we needed for the SAS show, we needed there. When it wasn't, when things weren't
yeah,
quite working out right, or we got some, people were questioning whether we were a big hoax. I think in America, I think people were a bit more questioning, especially because we were from the UK. But as soon as they realized this was for real, we were totally authentic, and every single penny that we raised was going to the charity. Then it was like, all right, now we're in. And then like
yeah,
Americans are, they just went for it absolutely fully. But yeah,
yeah,
and like, the coolest thing was that the first time we did it, one of the guys who had been involved, he's in a wheelchair. He was being pushed across the finish line, and he just looked at me and said, "Dan, this is when I start to heal." And this is 11 weeks at this point after the bombings. Hardly any time has
wow,
gone by, and I'm sure you're going to know people that have experienced this, the kind of PTSD that you experience going back to
yeah,
back to the place where this happened. Like, this guy's there, and he's just, and anyway, he looks up and he says, "This is when I start to heal." those words are, I could have them tattooed on me, but I don't need to because they're there all the time anyway.
Yeah.
And that's when you like, again when I have these down moments when I'm not feeling like the happiness guru, I can look at those words and you're just like, okay, it's fine. I'm questioning what I'm doing in life, all those sorts of things. You just go back to those words. You're like, okay, it's all worth it. It's worth it just for that one moment, not for anything else that's to come. And there are, every time we do some sort of crazy world first, there's a few comments like that you just add to it. And it really is just be nice to people, be good to people, help people. And it doesn't have to be setting up a global relay or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
hold that door open, be kind, and be empathetic of what people are going through in their actual lives. And don't do it for them, do it for you, because it all bounces back onto you, and it facilitates you living a so much more wholesome, positive lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I'm fully aware that obviously I know you need to get off soon, so I've got just two more things I'd like to talk about. You talked about world's first and stuff like that. More specifically, a Guinness World Record. I'm talking about your relay around London.
Yeah.
I tried getting involved with that myself. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the country at the time, so I couldn't make it. Unfortunately, I would have loved to. And I'd like to maybe in the future. But to explain it in sort of basic terms, like what you actually did, it's basically a relay you did around London for 30 days and nights, and you basically same as what you did with the Boston or the American one, where you passed a baton round and people did 5 or 10K runs in groups, obviously, and cheered each other on. And you obviously broke a record for the longest continuous relay or team relay.
Yeah. It was another amazing experience. We were doing it for to try and break down some of the barriers that have been building within the London community, especially with Brexit, and for gang culture. We had homeless people, refugees, gang members, CEOs, builders, everything in between take part. And it's just another beautiful way of showing the world that if you work together, you can achieve the incredible, really, rather than always striving on your own is great, bully for you. But if you bring a whole load of people along with you and you have an army, then man, you are traveling at a much faster pace towards your goals and all that sort of stuff. And this beautifully transitioned into what I'm working on it just happened last Thursday, was
Yep.
One Run Global, which was the first ever truly global running event. We had people from every single country in the world take part, 15,000 people. Again, I'm using running. It's not like running. It is a powerful tool, and it's just something I know, and I know the community, and it could have been anything, anything that brings these people together. But anyway, we had these 15,000 people from 195 different nations, all running on Human Rights Day. We raised a shed load of money for cool charities. And it's just, I think if nothing else, I'm probably just addicted to this now. The creating moments that in certain people's lives, will last a lifetime. You feel like, even the Olympics don't have 195 nations involved. The World Cup doesn't. We're probably the first ever, again, creating first. We're the first ever event to be truly global. And the fact that whoever you are, wherever you are in the world, you can be part of it. That is, we're both wearing our every human shirts right now, and we just wanted every human to be able to take part. So, yes, it's a running event, but people were walking. We were encouraging people just to move their bodies. We had people did kind of circus. We had people doing boxing, all different sorts of things. It's about movement, really, because as you say, it doesn't matter if it's rugby or it's running. It's the kind of getting those endorphins into your body and doing something with other people. And I'm tired now. It's still a week later, but we spent we were kind of again up for not sleeping for a few nights as it all went on, and we were kind of monitoring it and interviewing celebrities and everything like that. But it's another one of those little memories that you look back on and you're like, whoa, blown away. How on earth? I want to be that old guy that's just, I lived every single moment of my life as fully as I possibly could. My granddad was quite like this, and he's he's passed away, but he is a massive inspiration for me, and I've kind of taken that on board. And my mum and dad, they're just incredible human beings, and they've given me, both teachers. But I had, so much love as I grew up. That's what's done it. I don't have to worry about anything else because I know they're there, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that allows you such freedom to imagine, create, to push those barriers.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little thing. So when I normally work with children, I there's a little story I tell them, which I'll quickly tell. It's basically there was a poll done, or not a poll. Someone went into a end of life sort of unit and said to people like, "Is there anything you regret doing in life?" And most people would say no. Like most people say no, they don't regret anything they've done in life. It's just the things they hadn't done that they regret. I think that's a great thing to sort of look at. Is if you want to go and do something, just do it. Because end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, there'll be things that you think, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done this. People always do things that we regret. I've done things I regret. But end of the day, there is still, I don't want to be on my deathbed and think, well, I wish I'd done this, wish I'd done that. Because we've all got the opportunity to do things nowadays. And my last question for you, Danny, is before you go, is if you could sort of give any little bit of advice for people who feel like they can't do something, or they have the excuse of not being able to do it, what would you say to them?
Well, the piece of advice I always give is not completely related to this. Is the words my dad. Like I'm dyslexic, a little bit hyperactive. I was in trouble at school. I would always get red pen all over my books, criticizing whatever I was doing. And I go
Yeah,
home and I tell my dad, this is what the other kids are doing. This is what I'm doing. And my dad's words there, were just genius. And I just wish every person in the world could have had these words. And he just said to me, don't worry about what anyone else is doing. Just be the best version of yourself. And I think if you can
yeah,
get that into your mind and stop worrying what everyone else is. Yeah, I know you. There's a lot of people would say that they're sitting there having a conversation, we're having a conversation here, and I'd be worrying about what you're
yeah,
thinking about me. But it's like, don't be so arrogant as to think that someone else is thinking about you. They're all just sitting there worrying about themselves and how how everyone's
yeah,
receiving those. I kind of love that part of things. But for anyone who's kind of fearful of fearful of going out there and just kind of living their best life, I just think it's that it's just like running. It's all about anything. It's just that first step is the hard one. Pluck up your courage. Do it, because we have one life, and just exactly like you said, you don't want to be on your deathbed regretting things, and don't make it too outlandish. I've lived an outlandish, some of these things I'm doing now are ridiculous, but that all started from a much smaller setting where
yeah,
I was just,
exactly.
like like I said, I'm dyslexic. I had a lot of trouble. I failed English at GCSE, but I was competing at triathlon, and I was writing up some of the reviews of the races, and these started getting published. I'm like, wow, I'm getting in magazines. And then when I cycled to India, people encouraged me to put all my blogs together and form a bit of a story around it and try and get it into a publishing house. And it got published. It became a bestseller. It went on to be win awards. And the
Yeah,
if I had allowed myself to listen to the little voices in my head, mainly just the replaying my teacher's words, really, and I would never have attempted something like that. But I just thought, well, let's just give it a go. What is there to lose? Yeah, you can fall flat on your face, but you just get back up and you'll learn from those errors. And but to be quite honest, if you go for it and you really go for it, and you're doing it for the right reason, I think is another thing.
yeah,
Adventure is not for everyone, and you might just want to do something like, you don't want to go and cycle to India if that's not what you want to do, because that's
yeah,
6 months of hell, diarrhea, injury, accidents, all sorts of things. And if you're not wanting that really fully in your soul, then it's not going to be, it's just, it's going to fall down and it's going to break you, rather
Yeah.
than build you up to the new things. And I think I'm just waffling now, but yeah, get out there, do it, and enjoy life. Really enjoy it. Don't don't allow yourself to be a robot or a cog or someone on a treadmill just walking the life. Look around you, see how amazing, like, how incredible is it that we have found this planet that is beautiful, that we can survive on? How incredible that we have developed from some sort of cell-like creature into this trillion cell human being with the brain, the physicality that we have. Don't let that all go to waste on you. Get out there, do it.
Awesome. Um, Thank you very much, Danny. It's been an absolute pleasure. As I say, what I'll do, if you want to keep in touch with all your future endeavors and stuff like that, I'll put some links in the description. And obviously, I'm sure you've got some stuff planned for the future. But thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. What I will say is, if you want to keep in touch with what I'm doing, obviously, again, just keep in touch with my pages, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the flip side.